Bhagavad Lila, chapter 46, Uddhava visits Vrindavan. When Nanda Maharaj and the coward men returned to Vrindavan, it was a very pathetic scene for Mother Yashoda and the gopis. Krishna and Balaram remained at Mathura so that their parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, could properly educate them. Besides this, many of Kansa's allies were preparing to attack Mathura. And so, the presence of Krishna and Balaram was required. For Krishna did not want Vrindavan to be disturbed by his numerous enemies. One day, the greatly intelligent Uddhava, the son of Vasudeva's brother, Devabhag, and thus a cousin and beloved friend of Krishna, and a direct disciple of Brihaspati, arrived in Mathura. This chapter describes Uddhava's visit to Braj, and Uddhava observes that which caused great joy for Krishna and Balaram, and also the unhappiness felt by the Brajvasis felt in separation from Krishna and Balaram. Remembering the sorrow of the Brajvasis who were afflicted with separation from him, Krishna became full of anxiety and reflected, "Who is there in the city of Mathura qualified to deliver my message, which will relieve the suffering of the Brajvasis and make known to the world the supreme position of my Brajvasis, Prema? Who is there who has performed thousands of austerities in order to delight in the sweet ocean of the Brajvasis' prema?" This verse, number 1, singles out Uddhava as the right person to do the needful. Uddhava was respected by all the members of the Brishni clan for his exemplary words and deeds. Uddhava was an expert counselor and skillful. He would be very skillful at consoling the feelings of the Brajvasis, and he was a beloved friend of Krishna. Therefore, Uddhava was qualified to drink the nectar of the Brajvasis' pure love of God. Uddhava is also fluent in discussing conjugal love, just like Subal Saka in Brajabhumi. What was in Uddhava's heart would manifest in his words even more than with Krishna. As Krishna says in the Bhagavatam 3:4-31, "No davon vapi mam yuno, Uddhava is not even slightly different from me." Resembling Krishna so much, being also blue in color, Uddhava was a perfect person to execute the role of Krishna's messenger in Vrindavan. Uddhava, being a direct disciple of Brihaspati, Shishyo Brihaspati Sakshat, means that Brihaspati personally taught that most intelligent Uddhava all the Shastras. However, Uddhava still lacked knowledge of one particular Shastra, which was inaccessible even to Brihaspati, namely, the topmost knowledge of the science of Prema, which controls Sri Krishna himself. But because Uddhava is so dear to Krishna, certainly the damsels of Braj would instruct Uddhava in this Shastra of Braja Prem. Uddhava is described as Buddhi Sattama, which means that he's so extremely intelligent that he could understand that knowledge of Prem which Sri Krishna personally spoke to his chief queens in Dwarka in the privacy of their personal quarters. The Bhagavatam 10:83-43 describes how the Dwarka Mahishis appreciated the depth of the gopis' love. Brajastriyo yad vanchanti pulindyas trinaviruda gavascharyato gopa padasparsham mahatmana We Dwarka queens desire the same contact with Krishna's feet that the young women of Braj, the coward boys, and even the aboriginal women, Pulindas, desire, namely, the touch of the dust Krishna leaves on the plants and grass as he tends the cows. Uddhava is actually the son of Vasudev's brother. In other words, he is Krishna's cousin brother. The word Uddhav literally means a festival of joy. So this verse describes Uddhava, it says Sakshat, it says Brihaspate Sakshat Uddhavo. So it can mean Sakshat Brihaspati, he is a direct disciple, personally taught by Brihaspati, Sakshat, directly. Or, Sakshat Uddhav, that Uddhav is actually the personification of a festival of joy. Thus, being that Sakshat Uddhav, or embodiment of festivity, when the Brijvasis would see Uddhav upon his arrival and visit to Braj, then they would all become blissful and feel in a festive mood. Uddhava was not only Krishna's devotee, but an exclusive devotee, ekantinam. An ekanta bhakta is one who gives up his mother, father, and other attachments and fixes his mind only on Krishna, and an ekanta bhakta is filled with deep praying for Krishna. Uddhava is also described as preshtam, the most dear, even among all these ekanta bhaktas, or exclusive devotees. And furthermore, Uddhava is the object of Krishna's special affection. Once upon a time, Krishna took Uddhava's hand and spoke to him in a secluded place. This indicates Krishna's anxiety about the residents of Braj. Krishna removes the distress of anyone who merely surrenders to him. What to speak of taking away the distress of the Brijvasis, who possessed the topmost form of Krishna Prem. Krishna said to Uddhav, Uddhav, make my father and mother completely happy. Uddhav, the mental pain of separation from me is bound within the gopis' hearts with a strong rope. You can release them from this by my messages, which I will convey to you, not by your expertise in speech. And it will be done by many messages. It is not one message on Gyan Yoga, analysis and detachment, nor after that by two messages containing instructions on how to attain me and then words of consolation. These messages will simply burn to ashes in the blazing fire of the gopis' prem. But the gopis will finally be freed from sorrow by hearing many confidential instructions indirectly spoken, which should be revealed to them and to no one else. Uddhav, the minds of the Brajagopis are fixed on me alone. I am their very life, mat prana. They have given up all bodily connections, such as husbands, sons, mothers, fathers, eating, drinking, and sleeping. They have understood that I alone am dear to them, and not any other husband of their own. Not only am I dear to the gopis, but I am the dearest of all. Not only am I the dearmost, but the Braja Gopis think of me as their very selves and as the Supersoul. Since I, their soul, am living here in Mathura, the damsels of Braj believe that their souls have left their bodies, and only by my inconceivable Yogamaya potency are the Braja Gopis still living. I sustain the neophyte sadhakas who renounce this world and its mundane religiosity for my sake, then what to speak of these Braja damsels? But someone may object, Krishna, if you are the dearmost to the gopis' minds and life heirs, and their very self, then why haven't they come here to meet you in Mathura? How can they stay there without you in Braj? Then Krishna answers, the minds of the women in Gokul are fixed in meditation upon me, in the dress of a cowherd boy, adorned with gunja berries, colored oxides, flute and peacock feathers, and engaged in playing with them in Gokul. Why should they come to Mathura? Besides, I do not desire to bring them here. Furthermore, whatever is dear to us becomes an object of our possessiveness. Ultimately, the dearest object is the soul or ourself. Thus, things in a favorable relationship to ourself also become dear to us, and we try to possess them. Among countless millions of such dear things, I am the dearest of all, even dearer than one's own self. The Braja Gopis have realized this fact, and thus they have become stunned in separation from me due to their intense love for me. Although they would have given up their lives, they are being kept alive by my inconceivable potency. Uddhav, with great difficulty, the gopis are somehow maintaining their lives because of my promise to return. It would be much easier to simply give up their lives. Someone may question, Krishna, how are the gopis maintaining their lives? Krishna answers, it was by my statement, I will quickly return, pratyagama, made while leaving Gokul, that the gopis have strong hope that I will return. This is all that is maintaining their life heirs, which are about to leave their bodies. Someone asks, what is the relation of the gopis to you? Krishna answers, even though the cowherd damsels are women of the cowherd community, still they belong to me. Their husbands actually have no contact whatsoever with their supremely attractive qualities of form, taste, fragrance, sound, and touch. Rather, their husbands merely presume, these are our wives. In order to nourish the taste of ras, the Braja Gopis have always been, from the very beginning, in a self-sustaining conjugal relation with me as their paramour, parakiya bhav. The damsels of Braj are to be enjoyed by me alone, because they are manifestations of my own form, Madhatmika, as incarnations of supreme bliss. The damsels of Brajabhumi are my own internal energy, appearing as the essence of my pleasure potency. Though I am Atmaram, I derive more pleasure from them. For this reason, I consider them more deserving of my mercy than even my own self. These gopis are mine because they are the objects of my enjoyment. Or the gopis' very selves are absorbed in me, in the sense of their always hankering to give pleasure to my mind. Thus addressed by Krishna, Uddhava accepted his master's message, mounted his chariot, and set off for Nanda Gokul. When Uddhava entered Braj, the sun was setting, and his chariot was covered with dust raised by the hooves of the cows. Inspired by the desire potency, Ichcha Shakti of Krishna, who thought, "Let Uddhava see the splendor of my Braj." Yogamaya covered the particular manifestation of Braj, which was merged in grief because of separation from Krishna, and undergoing the sanchari bhavas of disinterest, nirved, depression, vishad, and humility, dainya. Instead, Yogamaya showed Uddhava a typical evening in Braj, in which Krishna was present, charming with the positive sentiments of joy, playfulness, eagerness, and enthusiasm. Because the cows were in heat, the bulls were mad, mooing loudly and fighting with each other to mate with them. Braj echoed with the sounds of cows running after their new calves. Along with the sound of milking cows, there were shouts in all directions, such as, "Let the cow loose! Don't let the cow loose! Bring the cows here! Do this quickly! Do this slowly! Bring this! Take this! Give this! Receive this!" Braj also appeared splendid on account of the sound of the flutes and the singing of the gopis. The performance of sacrifices and worship beautified the homes of the cowards. Thus Uddhava saw a very blissful, Krishna-conscious, joyful Braj. Uddhava approached the home of Nanda in Nandagram, which was filled with misery due to separation from Krishna. Uddhava looked just like Krishna, Nanda's son, and Uddhava gave pleasure to anyone who saw him. Thus, though Nanda was stunned in separation from his son Krishna, when he saw Uddhava, he became aware of external events and eagerly embraced his exalted visitor. Nanda was thinking, "My worshipable deity Narayan has come here in the form of this guest, Atiti Narayan." Thus Nanda worshipped Uddhava with foot wash and other items. Nanda fed Uddhava sweet rice. From the day that Krishna departed for Mathura, all the homes of the Brijvasis were left unswept and dirty. Everyone's house was filled with leaves, grass, dust, and spider webs. The Brijvasis were kept alive only by the milk, yogurt, and buttermilk brought by people from neighboring villages. The Brijvasis spent their days and nights simply lamenting, "Alas, alas, we have died." But on this day of Uddhava's arrival in Nandagram, one particular Brahmin in Nanda's entourage understood that the king of Braj was thinking, when Uddhava comes to my house today, he should not suffer from hunger. Thus, that Brahmin took some chipped rice and cooked just enough sweet rice to feed one person. Massaging Uddhava's feet was performed by a servant, since Uddhava was Nanda Maharaj's nephew and therefore an inferior. Fearing that if he asked about Krishna, his throat would choke up and tears would come to his eyes, Nanda first asked Uddhava about the welfare of Vasudeva. Vasudeva was now freed from Kamsa's prison and all sorts of dangers. With tears in his eyes and a choked voice, Nanda Maharaj then inquired about Krishna. Pointing with his forefinger, Nanda Baba said, Uddhava, just see the unfortunate condition of Krishna's mother. Just see how Braj, whose very soul and master, Atmanatam, was Krishna, is now deprived of a master and devoid of beauty. When will Govinda return? O Uddhav, perhaps you know the intention in Krishna's mind. Uddhav, yes, Nanda Maharaj, I am sure Krishna will come to console you and stay here again permanently. Nanda Baba, forget about Krishna's coming back here to remain permanently. I beg only to see him. Will Govinda not come just once to see his family members who are suffering in a blazing fire of separation? We are all about to die today or tomorrow. If Govinda does return, then he can receive and enjoy millions of cows, gold coins, pearls, diamonds and other jewels, silver and gold plates, varieties of garments, ornaments, sandalwood paste, aguru, scent and kunkam, and many other household objects. If we, his parents, die, then who else will have a right to all these things? So Krishna should come and take them. Certainly, a person should reside where the things he desires are found. Uddhav, Nanda, why are you talking like this? You should know that Govinda is about to come. Intolerant of the delay, Nanda Maharaj said, when will I be able to see Krishna's face, which surpasses the beauty of 1,000,000 moons, and his incomparable nose, nectar-sweet smile, and his long lotus-petal eyes? Now that our lives are about to end, may we see Krishna just once and then die. Thus Nanda Baba expresses his extreme anxiety. Uddhava replied, but you will not die. You will live a long time, raising your son with affection. Nanda Baba replied, unlike before, we will not be saved from the hands of death. Krishna saved us from the forest fire and Indra's torrential rains because of his natural affection for us. But why is he not saving us now from the terrible fire of separation? I cannot understand this. Uddhava said, Nanda Maharaj, just remembering Krishna's moon-like face produces an intoxicating nectar that removes all kinds of distress. Nanda Baba replied, that is true, but even though recollection of Krishna removes all suffering. Now, because of our ill fortune, that remembrance creates even more suffering. Whenever we remember Krishna, we lose all interest in material activities. Only by the force of habit do we continue to bathe, eat, drink, and perform other daily activities. In such a state, we cannot remain alive. Anticipating that Uddhava might say, if this is the case, I can understand that by staying in the house, you are remembering Krishna too much. Therefore, to give up dwelling on Krishna, you should go outside and wander along the shore of the Yamuna tending your cows. Anticipating this suggestion, Nanda said, even this would be unfavorable. On seeing the rivers, forests, and other places where Krishna performs his leelas, our minds become absorbed in Krishna. Thus we remember Krishna more, and the pain of separation increases. By the sudden recollection of Krishna as the Lord, in contrast to his natural mood of affection and separation, Nanda speaks with a sense of discrimination in verse 23. It was due to the good fortune of me and of Vasudeva that Krishna and Balaram became our sons and appeared in my house. Krishna and Balaram have come to benefit the demigods by killing Kans and other demons. This is according to the prophetic words of Garga, Rishi. Krishna broke a bow 3 talas long, and with one hand, just his left hand, Krishna held up Govardhan hill for 7 days. Becoming completely attached to Krishna by remembering the Lord's majesty, Nanda Maharaj thought, oh, by misfortune, I have been separated from my son, who is an ocean of powerful qualities. Nanda Baba's attachment to Krishna was so great that even in appreciating Krishna's great powers as the Lord, Aishvarya, Nanda's personal relationship with Krishna did not weaken as it did with Vasudeva. Nanda's mind remained attached to Krishna with undiminished firmness. With his mind attracted to Krishna in this way, Nanda Maharaj became overcome by the sway of eternal affection, prema prasara vival. In the presence of the supreme prema of Nanda, who like Agastya swallowed the whole ocean, what is the insignificance of a whole ocean of Aishvarya or opulence? Nanda Maharaj controlled himself by the strength of his gravity. And now he was able to honor Uddhava properly as a guest, to look at him directly, to recognize him, inquire about his well-being, and to speak about Krishna's godly qualities. Yashoda, however, was drowning in whirlpools of the ocean of unsteadiness, and thus she could not offer any hospitality to Uddhava. From the very day that Krishna left for Mathura, tears fell continuously from Yashoda's eyes, and milk dripped from her breast. Even though Yashoda was being counseled by hundreds of elderly gopis and men, she would just say, I don't want to see anything except the face of my son. At every moment, Yashoda kept her eyes closed and cried constantly, drenching her clothing. Thus, she could not even recognize Uddhava, treat him with parental affection, ask him any questions, or give him any message for her son. Her breast flowed profusely with milk out of affection for her son. Yashoda was like a cloud showering the rain of tears and milk. Although Uddhav was already familiar with high levels of prema, now he clearly observed Nanda and Yashoda's intense loving attraction for Krishna. Seeing that both in quantity and quality their love was far superior to that of Vasudeva and Devaki, Uddhava became filled with bliss and thought, "Now my life has become successful, having seen such intense love." Thus, Uddhava was joyful even at seeing the anguish of Nanda and Yashoda, which was actually another form of loving ecstasy. Uddhava said, "Among all praiseworthy devotees in this world, Vasudeva and Devaki are especially so. But you two, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mata, are most praiseworthy because of the superiority of your prem." Uddhava describes Krishna as Narayan in verse 30, the Guru of everyone. Uddhava does this to emphasize Krishna's power and to sympathize with Nanda and Yashoda's sentiments. Uddhava describes to Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda how Krishna and Balaram are Narayan and the spiritual masters of everyone. As the Lord and his expansions are non-different, Krishna and Balaram, though appearing as two entities, are actually one. Both Krishna and Balaram are the seed and the womb of the universe. Both of them assume the forms of the immediate and ingredient cause, and both are the Purusha and Pradhan, since the potency and the potent are essentially one. Entering as the indwelling supersoul within all beings, Krishna and Balaram control the living entity, whose knowledge is separate. They mercifully grant knowledge of the personality of Godhead to the devotees, and knowledge of Brahman to the Gyanis. How Krishna gives knowledge to the devotees, Vishwanath explains by citing Bhagavad Gita 10:10. Tesham satadiyuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhiyogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Sri Krishna said, Arjun, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. And how the devotees receive knowledge of Krishna by Krishna's mercy is also told in 8:24-38. Madiyam mahimanam cha param brahmeti shabditam Vaisyasyanugrahitam me samprashner vivritam ridi. You will be thoroughly advised and favored by me, and because of your inquiries, everything about my glories, which are known as Param Brahma, will be manifest within your heart. Thus, you will know everything about me. Uddhava said to Nanda, after burning up all traces of karma, one goes to Vaikuntha in a pure spiritual body, bright as the sun. Nanda and Yashoda, you have rendered devotion to Narayan, who is the soul of all and the cause of all causes. Even though Narayan appeared in the form of a human, for you, therefore, what activities remain to be done? So there's nothing remaining for Nanda and Yashoda, but for Krishna there remains the work of consoling and pacifying them and being obedient to them. Nanda replies, Our dear child Uddhav, I have heard that you are very intelligent, but now I see that you are actually foolish because you are praising us. Alas, alas, who else would let such a wonderful son, full of good qualities, leave his home and go elsewhere? Who is there in the three worlds more unfortunate, degraded, and miserable than us? We are to be condemned by everyone. Anticipating this statement by Nanda, Uddhava consolingly said, Achyuta, which means one who never fails, falls or breaks his promise, Achyuta will come very soon to Braj, acting as the master and protector of the Yadus. Krishna will stay here with everyone and fulfill all your desires. After killing Kamsa, Krishna will meet you at the edge of Mathura and say, you return to Braj, we will also quickly come there. Krishna is certainly going to do that. In verse 35, Uddhava is speaking in the present tense to indicate that Krishna is fulfilling his promise at this very moment. In another manifestation, Krishna was actually present in Braj at that very moment, being attentively cared for by Nanda and Yashoda, though unseen by Uddhava. By the influence of Vagdevi, Saraswati, Uddhava's words were actually true. Nanda Maharaj said, Oh, how great is our misfortune that our son, who would never abandon us and always tell the truth, is delayed in returning to Braj. Uddhava consoles Krishna's lamenting parents. Nanda Maharaj, you should not lament. Very soon you will be able to see Krishna. Nanda, you say we will see Krishna, but when will that be? Tomorrow, the next day, or 10 days from now? With some consolation, we will keep our life heirs from leaving our bodies till that day. But if Krishna is not coming, you should tell us truthfully, let our life heirs leave us, for we cannot stand the pain of repressing them. Hearing this, Uddhava considered, alas, what advice can I give them if they are suffering? If they were suffering in separation from an ordinary mundane son, I could enlighten them by saying, why are you immersed in the illusion of family attachment like this? False attachment to wife and sons is a cause of trouble. Give that up and attach yourself to the Lord. But how can I give this advice to Nanda, who is attached to Krishna as his son? He is not like Vasudeva, who on seeing the godly powers of Krishna, weakened his attachment to Krishna as his son. Rather, by seeing Krishna's majestic powers, Nanda and Yashoda's attachment to their son becomes even stronger, and they think, alas, even the parents of an ordinary son die out of misery if they can no longer see him playing in their house. By our good fortune, the Lord himself played about in our house as our son. We lament bitterly if we cannot cuddle Krishna for even a moment. How will we live without seeing that child in our home? We are most unfortunate, having been separated from such a child. But on the other hand, upon realizing the godly powers of Krishna, Vasudeva and Devaki think, Krishna is the worshipful Lord. He is not our son. Thus they refrain from embracing and fondling Krishna. Not only is the knot of possessiveness tied tightly for Nanda and Yashoda, but Krishna has strong possessiveness of them as well, even though he is the Supreme Lord. I have seen Krishna's concern for their sake when he told me, Go to Braj and make my father and mother happy, and remove the pain of separation from the Brajagopis by giving news about me. I also recall the cowherd men which I previously heard. Dear Nanda, how is it that we and all the other residents of Braj cannot give up our constant affection for your son? And how is it that your son is so spontaneously attracted to us? This is Uddhava's thinking. But if I go to Mathura and bring Krishna here to Braj tomorrow, Jarasandha, angered over Kamsa's wives becoming widows, because his wives are his daughters, Jarasandha will come to Mathura and destroy it. Who then will protect Vasudeva and the other Yadavas? If Krishna leaves Braja again and returns to Mathura to protect them, however, then the Brijvasis will certainly die. If I tell the Brijvasis that Krishna will come in 4 or 5 years, it will be very hard for them to hold on for that long. If I lie, telling them that Krishna will come after 4 or 5 days, when that time expires, then they discover I lied, they will also die. Alas, as there is no other means, I will now weaken their prema by discoursing on spiritual knowledge. I will tell them that as a supersoul, Krishna is indifferent to everyone and everything. And as the formless, impersonal Brahman, Krishna has no relationships with birth, father, mother, material activities, or the material body. To realize all this, I will teach them how to meditate on the soul. However, if Nanda and Yashoda's unlimited and unfathomable pure love for Krishna not only remains unchecked, but rather increases after hearing my discourse, then I will return to Mathura and simply glorify their incomparable prema again and again in the grand assembly of Krishna, Vasudeva, Ugrasena, and the others. Having decided this, Uddhava meditated on Krishna and spoke about Krishna as a super soul. Uddhava said, Nanda Maharaj, as fire lies dormant within wood, Krishna is present within the hearts of all living beings. Just as the fire within wood is not visible without friction, similarly, Krishna is not visible without devotion. Upon hearing this, Nanda and Yashoda thought, Uddhava is telling us if we do not perform devotional activities as the Vaishnavas do for Krishna, our son, why should he appear in our house? If that is the case, we must perform devotional service for our son, so that somehow or other he will appear in our house. Noticing that Nanda and Yashoda's prema did not diminish after his explanation, Uddhava said, My dear King of Braj, Krishna is directly the supreme absolute truth, Para Brahman. He is free from the desire for respect and also gives respect to others. No one is dear to Brahman because Brahman has no false identity and is equal to all. That Brahman does not take birth in the wombs of goodness, passion, or ignorance, because Brahman is without birth and has no karma nor a material body. Brahman does not have material activities or material goals. Krishna, however, takes birth from those whose natures are purely spiritual, beyond the material modes, such as Yashoda, Devaki, and Kaushalya. Afterwards, Krishna appears with a body, has a mother and father, performs activities and fulfills responsibilities and has goals. Though Krishna is the original form of Brahman, out of his own compassion he appears in a way suitable to deliver his devotees from suffering. Nanda Maharaj said, "It may be questioned, if Krishna is equal to all, and no one is dear or not dear to him, then why does Krishna make some people happy in this world and others unhappy?" Uddhava replied, "The answer is that happiness and distress are produced by the modes of material nature, not by Krishna. Even though Krishna is beyond the material modes of nature, by glancing at his Maya Shakti, he accepts Sattva, Raja and Tamagunas." Nanda Maharaj says, "For what purpose?" Uddhava, "For the purpose of playing, even though Krishna is transcendental, beyond play. In truth, even though Krishna is transcendental, he appears within this world of illusion as Krishna and Balaram to enjoy pastimes with his devotees. Although Krishna transcends the modes, he uses the modes to create the universe, so that the jivas from the previous day of Brahma can reap the fruits of their good and bad karma, and thus enjoy in suffering. What fault is there in Krishna for this? Actually, Krishna is not the creator of the universe either, since even that is executed by the modes of nature. Due to a defect in the bodily functions, a person may perceive that the earth is turning around like a potter's wheel. Though the mind is the doer, the living entity perceives the soul as the doer, due to identification with the mind. In the same way, the living entity perceives the universe as the creation of the Lord, though it is actually the creation of the modes of nature. The material universe is not a direct creation of Krishna. It is a creation of Krishna's Maya Shakti, which comes from the Lord. As Krishna and his energy are non-different, one can say that the Lord, in the form of his Maya Shakti, creates the world. Nanda, you should not think of the creator of the whole universe as your son, or the source of your happiness and suffering. Though Krishna is the Supreme Lord, if you still think of him as your son, then listen as I speak the truth. Krishna is not your son, but whoever cultivates a sentiment for him as their son will have him as their son. Anyone who thinks of Krishna as the most beloved of their souls will achieve him as their dearmost. For those who think of Krishna as Father, he is their Father. Because Krishna is the controller, nothing is impossible for him. Actually, O King of Braj, you should know that since the whole universe is created by Krishna's energy, it is non-different from him. You should bear this in mind when you speak about him. There is nothing in this universe that can be said to exist independently of Lord Achyuta. Though they passed the entire night discussing together, Uddhava could not pacify Nanda and Yashoda, nor get them to accept his advice. Then Nanda considered things like this. Uddhava wants to enlighten us by saying that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. Do we not know that? At Krishna's name-giving ceremony, I heard Gargamuni say your son will be equal to Narayan in qualities. Indeed, who else is there more equal to Narayan than Krishna? Therefore, we learned all this from Garga, that our son is Narayan. And we also personally experienced our son to be Narayan when he killed Putana Aga Baka, lifted Govardhan hill, stopped the forest fire, made the ruler of Varuna offer respects. Certainly I realize that Krishna is Narayan, the super soul. Nevertheless, nothing inhibits me from thinking of Krishna as our son. Even though Krishna may be the Supreme Lord, we do not think of him as an object of worship. We simply think of Krishna as our son and find satisfaction by offering him the remnants of our true betel nut. If he were not our son, our minds would not be satisfied. Before Krishna's birth, we could meditate on Narayan, our family deity. But now, as soon as we meditate on Narayan, Narayan appears directly in front of us. This is a sign of the satisfaction in our minds. Therefore, acting like this in relation to our son is not a fault. We are certainly Krishna's father and mother. Furthermore, Krishna's own realization in this matter is also proof that we too are his parents. We have seen many times that Krishna's face becomes sad if we don't pamper him by offering him the remnants of our chewed betel nut, lift him on our laps, embrace him, kiss him, and so forth. If Yashoda were not Krishna's mother, how could she tie him up when he broke the yogurt pots? Seeing him unhappy on being tied up, I freed him, and Krishna smiled with happiness. Because we are his parents, Krishna accepts our scolding, commands, and even our tying him up, though he may be the Supreme Lord. If it was not a fact that we are Krishna's parents, then how could the Supreme Personality, the all-pervading Absolute, become bound up by us? But now, after Krishna's killed Chanura, Kamsa, and others in Mathura, everyone is telling him, "Oh Krishna, you are certainly the Supreme Lord." And Devaki is telling him, "I am your mother." And Vasudeva is telling him, "I am your father." And others are saying, "We are your paternal uncles." And others are telling Krishna that they are his brothers, relatives, and friends. Whenever they try to bring Krishna to their various houses by inviting them there, they simply prolong his stay in Mathura. Then our son, the crest jewel of proper conduct, looks at their faces and falls further into a terrible trap. Being incapable of returning to his Braj because of his benevolent nature, I suppose Krishna told everyone, "Indeed, I am the Supreme Lord, the creator of the universe. Who can be my mother? Who can be my father? And who can be my relative? Just look in all the scriptures, and you will see that I belong only to that person who renders devotional service to me and no one else. Only to his house will I go, and he alone is my father and other relations." Nanda Maharaj continued to contemplate. But this Uddhav is simply a child, even though he may be very intelligent. He cannot fathom the depths of my son's heart. Taking the literal meaning of Krishna's words as if they were Krishna's real thoughts, Uddhava has come from Mathura and given us this advice. But my son has cleverly spoken quite correctly that, quote, "He who renders devotion to me is my father, and in his house I reside." Therefore, I am sending this message with Uddhava to Krishna. My dear Krishna, I have devotion for your lotus feet. Be merciful and pleased with me, so that I can attain you by the devotional processes of hearing and chanting about you, remembering you and offering obeisances unto you. Receiving this message, my son will announce it in the assembly of the Yadavas. O men of the Yadav dynasty, you could not exhibit devotion to me in this place, but Nanda Maharaj is doing so. Therefore, Nanda Maharaj is my real father, friend, and beloved. I am going to his house. Saying this, Krishna will come here at once. At last, Nanda Maharaj forgot all these deliberations and did not send any message to Krishna due to the influence of the Sanchari Bhav of humility, Dainya. Rising during the Brahma Muhurta period, the Brajagopis lit lamps and worshipped the entrances of their homes, churned yogurt, and performed other domestic duties. The gopis' gem-studded armlets, anklets, and rows of bangles glittered in the lamplight. As they pulled the churning ropes, their breasts, hips, and necklaces trembled. Their jeweled earrings lit up their cheeks, and their faces shone with kumkum. As the gopis churned yogurt, they loudly sang, absorbed in thinking of the lotus-eyed Krishna and feeling his presence. They sang loudly in great bliss. Dressing nicely with colorful clothing and ornaments, smearing kumkum on oneself, and singing sweetly, these activities do not happen or occur in a state of separation and lamentation. Therefore, by this description in verse 46, it is understood that at the end of night, or in the early morning, Krishna was seeing the manifestation of Braj with Krishna personally present there, just as he had seen at the end of the previous day upon his arriving in Braj. The gopis were feeling separation in the morning when they saw the chariot of Uddhava. Now the manifestation of Braj and separation from Krishna again appears. And the gopis, when they saw that chariot, they angrily said, "Perhaps Akrura, who took Krishna to Mathura to fulfill the purposes of Kamsa, has returned to Braj. For what purpose has Akrura come again, now that Kamsa has been killed? Is he going to perform the funeral rites of his master, Kamsa, who is pleased with his work of taking Krishna away from Braj, by using our flesh as an offering to him?" While the gopis were speaking like this, Uddhava approached the gopis.